Yeah, so I'm a systems engineer working for Ixia, and I'm responsible for the security test platform. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Now, one thing I've found really refreshing about this seminar is the fact that I've heard some really great keywords. I heard a lot of people talking about test, which is great, and I also heard people talking about specifically application performance and security resilience, and even how that can have a negative impact on your business if you haven't got that. I've also heard things about network visibility and how that has a role in network security. So for me, my future of cybersecurity seems to be changing, because now I don't need to tell people why you would want to test or why you would need application performance and security resilience. You seem to have kind of got it. So all I need to do is kind of show you how we're going to do that. First, I'd like to take you back in time a little bit. I've been testing many years, and I was thinking the other day when I used to test things like SMSCs for your text messages on your phone. I used to test the servers and that, and I was thinking, wow, we hear about this thing 3G coming. We had a little Nokia phones then with a screen the size of your thumbnail, and they used to say it's all moving towards IP, which was great, and I thought, brilliant. And they're saying, well, you can start watching movies, streaming movies over your phone. And I'm looking at my phone thinking, yeah, right, okay, I'd like to see that. But it's developed, things develop. So, over that same period of time, things have changed an awful lot. The amount of traffic that you get, it's gone off the scale. And the applications. We were saying at the time, what's going to be the next replacement, the killer app for, to replace text messaging. Well, the next killer app was apps. So apps are everywhere now. The whole scene has changed, and including, of course, the cybersecurity threats. So if we have a look at those in a bit more detail, of course, some of the simpler ones started off with your land attacks, and people realized at the time, well, this is great, because I can send a SYN packet off, and I can spoof source and destination IPs, and I can fire it off to a target, and it ties up their resources, or it floods their LAN, or whatever. Great. Kind of quite simplistic, but the nature of them was volumetric. And we still see them today. And that's great. But things have moved on. They've become more sophisticated, so you see more stateful attacks. Now we see a lot of, the layer 7, the application attacks, where instead of taking out a network, you're trying to exhaust the resources of a particular server. So instead of having maybe a distributed attack, you can just do a one-to-one. So from one PC, you can attack one server and attack the application layer by, I don't know, with a slow Loris or a slow post or Rudy. They're all working a similar way, in that what you're doing is you're targeting the application by saying, I'm going to post this big file to you, and then you're going to post it a couple of bytes at a time, and then wait another 20 seconds and post another couple of bytes, and away you go. And the state table of that server then gets full up, and it falls over. And great, you've exhausted your resources and taken the service down. And of course, you get these combined with the volumetric attacks, and makes them even more difficult to detect. Now, it all comes down to realism. And realism is important, because back in those days, any network device didn't have deep packet inspection. It wasn't content aware. It didn't really care. When you were testing devices like that, you were just testing that it could shift so many packets of layer 2 or 3 from one port to another at a specific rate, and great, you were good to go. Now it's all changed. I can't think of many devices now you see on any network that aren't content aware. Whether they shape, whether they block, whether they accelerate, whatever they do, they're really dependent on the content. And not just like HTTP, they really care now that it's Facebook or Gmail rather than just HTTP, which is now a transport mechanism. But the general idea is the more inspection you do, the slower it gets. So how do you test a device like that? Well, you need that realism. And these are the kind of effects that you can have on a device. So, one of the frustrations I have is people still either don't test or they use kind of, packet blasting techniques to test layer 7 devices, and then you don't get true performance. And you can see some representation of the kind of difference that you get in testing with real data as opposed to kind of fake data or just packet blasting, if you like. In fact, this looks quite dramatic, but a colleague of mine was testing a 20 gig firewall the other week, and with the specific rule sets that he had on there, what the customer had on there, and there were hundreds, with the number of zones that they had, with VLAN tagging going on, and the specific mix of traffic that they had, that 20 gig firewall was 1.5 gigs. It made an incredible difference. So how do we create this realism? Well, this tool, the Breaking Point, is able to generate hundreds of applications, your Facebooks, your Twitters, HTTP. The list isn't endless, but it's pretty big. But we do that in either one-arm mode, so you can be just clients testing, say, a web server or an Oracle database or something like that, or we do it in two-arm mode. So if you want to test some infrastructure end-to-end or a firewall or web application firewall, whatever, you can do that too. And it's all stateful. It's not packet capture replay anymore. And you can define every parameter. So we've got predefined mixes of traffic to replicate, first half 2014 of Asia Pacific Mobile or whatever. But you can change all those mixes to be exactly what you want, to replicate your mix of traffic on your network that you need to test. And you can drill down to change every single parameter if you want. We've got things like file generators, to have random size file generators as attachments. And that's the kind of thing that really stresses your DPI engine. The other thing that we use to create realism is Markoff text generation. I'm sure you know or heard of this guy, Markoff. He had some formulas. The most common one you see now is used in generating a text. So you can essentially upload a body of text, maybe Hound of the Baskervilles or something like that, and you can configure our device to say, well, okay, I want to have between 200 and 400 words from Hound of the Baskervilles, and I want to put these keywords in as well. So what you see on the wire isn't just all one characters. Let me just see if I can get that pointed. No. You won't just get one character. You see realistic emails, all unique. Every single one is, different to the other. And with the chat as well, you don't want just all the same characters. You want them all to be unique. Even if you generate HTML, with attachments, even the attachments, a random attachment is generated with it, and that's what stresses your DPI engines. That's all the good stuff, that's all the good traffic, because when you test a device, a network device, you want to be able to test with good traffic and malicious traffic. The malicious traffic on the Breaking Point gets really good because we've got around 6,000 exploits, around 30,000 bits of live malware. You can upload your own custom malware. So for your 0-day stuff as well, you can use that as well. You can apply evasion techniques, around 180 of them. So if you were sending malware with an SMTP email, you can change how you encode it. You can fragment, segment, reverse order, overlap, all these kind of things to get this security strike through your device. We also do some malicious, well, it doesn't stop there really. We can fuzz the application layer, or we can fuzz the IP stack. These are all techniques to stress a security device, whether it's making sure the IP stack is stressed, putting it, all the packets together correctly, or whether it's the application trying to handle maybe a web filter, something like that. We've got a load of predefined botnets on the box, and of course, you can modify these to your heart's content, but if you want it straight out of the box, you can replicate various botnets. I just wanted to go through a quick case study because we had a bank who had a unique situation. They had to refresh their firewall estate, and it wanted to be 10 gig, but they had different mixes of traffic in different parts of their network, but they wanted one solution. So that was the problem. So the traffic was different, as you see on the right there. When you looked at the results, well, the baseline test was all based on what the vendors supplied them. So they say, I want so many sessions per second, so much throughput from this firewall. And the vendor says, well, here's product A, here's product B, here's product C. And they all match exactly. Of course they're going to. But the key was testing it with these different mixes of traffic. So what you can see here, when the web mix of traffic was sent, vendor C was streets ahead. Again, vendor C was streets ahead with the partner portal and a little bit ahead with the office. If they were concerned about trading, then vendor B was the one for them. Now, when you look at the security strikes going through, you can see how effective they were at blocking. You can see that data there too. But ultimately, I mean, I don't know which vendor they went for in the end, but they've got that data to work on. And how different is that decision now based on whether you're just going to see a vendor and saying, you know, these are my requirements, what are you going to sell me? At least, you know, and if you do this in a data center, for example, at least, you know, you can sleep the nights before you're going to roll it out live, knowing that it's going to be right-sized. And all that took 3 days. This other scenario was financial exchange, and this was a DDoS mitigation solution we were testing. We generated the good traffic, and we generated the malicious traffic as well. Of course, what we want to be able to say to the customer is, well, okay, your DDoS mitigation solution kicked in at such and such time. You mitigated so much percentage of your bad traffic, and you didn't kill any of the good traffic. And this is the solution we have. You might have seen it in the exhibition room there. This is our platform called Perfect Storm 1. With that one box there, you can generate 80 gigs of layer 7 traffic, plus all your malicious traffic as well. So an awesome box. Security testing has come on leaps and bounds, and if you want to test or know to right-size a data center or test your security devices, there's no other way of doing it than testing it with realistic layer 7 traffic and realistic stateful attacks. And the last slide is we've just announced that we have virtualized, along with most of our other products, a virtual edition of Breaking Point. So now you can spin up a virtual machine and have Breaking Point running on that too.